It's the Weekly Wrap with your host, broadcasting legend Bruce Wolf, and his trusty sidekick, comedian Tim Slagle. And now, without further ado, Bruce Wolf.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself? I'm all caught up on Better Call Saul if you want to spoil anything.
As a matter of fact, I thought you were like in his apartment right now.
No, this one, Chris accused me last week of having a faulty towers set, so I thought I would go. So I would do with it. That is where we are. We're in the.
We got to be careful because fully 3 or 4 of our fans don't watch this. They just hear it. So we've got to make sure not to be too visual. Even though, of course, I am always wearing the blue shirt to complement my blue eyes, and I've heard that that's an asset for me.
Yeah, I'm wearing red, and for the same reason.
I see it, and I being colorblind, perhaps, don't notice it. So the election. So we had another primary. Your take on this, Tim?
It was a fun primary, boy. But I don't know if I'm going to spoil any of the things you want to talk about in the next segment, but I really enjoyed it. Do get a kick out of the fact that I think Arizona is still counting.
Well, in Arizona, I believe the Republicans are accusing the Republicans of fraud. Am I of election fraud?
Absolutely.
Because this Lake chick who was a news anchor. You know, I know what it's like to be a news anchor with a lousy haircut, according to Meghan McCain. Not about me, about her. That she got 70% of the election day voting, but that's still a close race. So somehow there's fraud there.
Apparently, it's my understanding that a lot of people are looking up their ballots, and it's showing that they're showing on the website as not voted in this election, even though they voted.
I mean, is this something Sidney Powell should be involved in? Is this something from the Dominion? Were they using Dominion machines? Can Republicans not trust Republicans? What's going on here?
I believe I could be. I thought I was just skimming past this. I believe that the election clerk was fired.
Just now?
A few hours back, yeah.
Oh, yeah, really? I'm not up to date on this.
They sent Mike Lindell into his bedroom with a pillow.
and they smothered him. They gave Mike Lindell a clip from Godfather 2 and said, "Here, do this," like they did in the hospital.
I think let me try to remember. I think it was the Pinellas, Florida, Pima County election clerk was fired. So.
Oh, okay.
Breaking news.
Let's see about
it's
that.
It's a mess.
Well, the thing is that, and this will only add fuel to the fire about election fraud. I was actually listening to Meghan McCain on the commentary podcast a little bit earlier today, and she was saying, and I believe her reporting is accurate here because she's certainly no friend to Trumpers. She was saying in very nice suburban areas in Arizona, that Trumpism is ubiquitous. I mean, you've got yard signs about saying "Stop the Steal." So it's very genuine that there's a lot of support for Trump and for the conspiracy theories. I mean, the only problem in Arizona is that all these people have been nominated are probably going to lose, aren't they?
That's the philosophy on it is that Democrats are actually helping all these Trump supporters that's how they're hoping to hold on to their prominence in the nation.
Yeah, this Karen Taylor Robson, I guess, who was up against Lake for the gubernatorial nomination, she's almost 70 and she's married to a guy who's like near 90. Nothing wrong. I'm not an ageist. I'm getting old myself, but not a good character. Okay.
What's actually interesting is current Secretary of State. She's in charge of counting the votes.
Oh, okay.
And you know what? With all those retirees in Arizona, there are a lot of hanging chads.
And by hanging, you mean they're killing themselves because I can't take the sun anymore. Here, I can't take the valley of the sun.
Just meant they're dangling low. That's how the chads are dangling low.
Speaking of Secretary of State, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't a friend of the show, Fincham was his name, I believe. We interviewed him last year. You remember
Yeah,
this?
I do.
And he was a nice guy. I didn't agree with the thing that he had to say, but Mark Fincham, no, he was nice. I mean, all his books, on his bookshelf. Remember, we went through it. It was all about, climate change denying, how to deny climate change, stuff like that. But he was fun. He was fun to talk to. But apparently he easily won the nomination, but he's, I guess, going to be one of those who probably loses as well. I mean, this is the problem. I mean, you got somebody like Lake, who she called Sidney Powell's election analysis sobering. I mean, even Sidney Powell, in defense in her own lawsuit, said, "Oh, don't believe anything I had to say." Now, that's what she was pleading. So, I mean, to rely on Sidney Powell is a little bit difficult. So, I don't know. I'm not too sanguine about what's going on in Arizona. But.
Well, it's kind of part of being an attorney, right? If you defend a murderer that you know is a murderer, you have to pretend that you don't think he's a murderer.
Oh no! So. Look, I mean, I know all the defense tricks, including but not limited to the kid who murdered his parents and then begged for the mercy of the court because he was an orphan. I know all those. Writ of Rahmanis, stuff like that. So let us turn right now, and then of course in Michigan, I mean, you've got the Democratic playbook. They underwrote the opponent of nobody knows how to pronounce this Republican guy's name. I think it's Meyer or Major
really?
or something. There's a J in there, but the Democrats underwrote the opponent, a guy named Gibbs, to the tune of about $500,000, and he's winning by 3 points last I saw in Michigan. And of course the Democrats are terribly cynical, and it's the worst thing in the world that Trumpism is ascendant, and one of the reasons it's ascendant is because the Democrats are underwriting it. But okay, I get that. And
I can't believe, Bruce, that you don't know how to pronounce his last name. Have you never been into a Myers?
Well, yeah, I have been. I just didn't, and I've been into a Menards, and
sure.
Yeah, right. I've been into a Myers, but you're right. So that's how you pronounce the Meyer.
Do you know where he got the money to finance his campaign?
From Myers? Is that it?
Yeah, he's part of the.
Well, you know that you're a Michigan guy.
He's part of the Thrifty Acre family.
Okay, see. Well, you're Michigan, so I'll take a back seat to you on analyzing what happened in Michigan. But this Gibbs guy, great biography. I mean, a wonderful CV. That's a curriculum vitae, Tim. I'm trying to.
I'm a Michigan guy. I'm not educated.
Exactly. So he got a bachelor's degree in computer science from Stanford. Studied abroad in Japan. And what was the name of that abroad? But anyway, he worked for Palm and Apple in Silicon Valley. Returned to Japan as an evangelical missionary. He's attacked the liberals in his Harvard Kennedy School classroom. Sounds great. And he looks the part. He's a racial minority, but he believes in all the conspiracy theories.
Wait a minute here. I admire anyone that attends the Kennedy School of Government and attacks liberals. I mean, come on.
There's a lot to admire here.
There's a couple of major chads right there.
And when I say admire, I put a J right in the middle of that word. so there you go. All right, but turning to Illinois. So we got Bailey, and fresh from apologizing for having said like 2 seconds after the shootings in Highland Park, okay, let's move on and let's celebrate July 4th. Apparently, he put his foot in his mouth on abortion by saying that abortion is worse than the Holocaust. I didn't hear the quote exactly. I just can't bear to watch Rex like that. But he apparently did that. And I was just wondering, I know that my former radio partner, Dan Proft, has been helping him with his campaign. And I tweeted to Dan, why don't you have Bailey sit on your lap while you do your best Paul Winchell imitation? And then I apologized because I know Dan never understood any of my pre-1970 cultural references, which is the entirety of my cultural references. He did not respond to that, so I don't think he's in good humor about what Bailey is doing. But yeah, gee whiz, to the extent you even hear the guy, it's not good stuff. And he is trying to tack to the center. because he won't answer questions about Trump or Adam Kinzinger or anything like that.
Now, did he put his foot in his mouth, or did they dig up an old tweet?
No, I don't know how I thought this was I don't know where this quote came from exactly.
I'm pretty sure it was an old tweet that somebody.
No, okay, so that doesn't matter anymore.
Just somebody, yeah, somebody. No, just somebody who's just happens to be looking at 10-year-old tweets because he's he's a nostalgia buff.
You know what? If he will say, "Look, I'm not going to talk about that," I'll take that as another tacit admission that he doesn't. He wants to get rid of his past there.
And the pro-life movement has been making that comparison forever, as long as I can remember, especially since it's, they've found out that it's mostly that abortion is most popular in the African-American community. They have been using the genocide comparison. So it's not
right, but something about the Holocaust. I mean, gee whiz. Do you have to say the Holocaust? Can't you just be a little bit sensitive? I remember the Pope at the time. I heard about this later. After the Carmelite nuns wanted to build a convent at Auschwitz, sure. And it sounds good, sensitive, and everything like that. But the Jews didn't. That's our place. That's where we, we're murdered and everything like that. And the Pope said, just stay away, just stay away. So let's be a little sensitive about that.
He should have compared it to the Armenian genocide.
Exactly.
Or the Ukrainian genocide.
The Hutus or the Hatis, all those guys out there. We don't care about that. No. Other Holocausts, forget it.
Yeah, if you're gonna quote a genocide, quote the genocide that
a safe genocide.
Didn't hurt the people who own the media.
Oh my God, Tim!
That was on purpose. That was on purpose. Oh my God, that was so on purpose.
I don't know if I'm coming back for the second segment, Tim. Like we own the media. All the Jews own the media. All right, coming up in the second segment, if there is one, Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
The United States killing the leader of Al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri, more than a decade after the raid that took out Osama bin Laden. Let's go to our White House correspondent, MJ Lee. She's working the story for us. MJ, this is really significant and an important moment for the U.S. right now. Tell our viewers what you're learning.
That's right, Wolf. This is about to be a major announcement that we hear directly from President Biden. We expect that President Biden will be addressing the nation at around 7:30 tonight. And a senior administration official had told us that this was a counterterrorism operation of a significant al-Qaeda target. And now we are learning from sources that this target was, in fact, al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri.
Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. I thought we were going to talk about Alzheimer's, not Al-Zawahiri. So I got it. I'm just bad at the rundown here. But
that would actually be dyslexia, not Alzheimer's.
Technically, I don't think so. My old saying about dyslexia. Why is it spelled dyslexic? That's what dyslexia should be.
I dated a girl.
Transpose the letters. You did?
I dated a girl who was dyslexic, and she was unbeatable in Scrabble.
Yeah,
because she
punchline, or this is true, right?
It's true, and it's also funny because she would look at like VOMSIE, and she'd go, "Oh, movies."
Yeah, exactly.
It's really
there's
an unfair advantage, I think.
There's a place on God's green earth for everyone. I think President Bush, the second one had a dyslexia problem as well.
It sure sounded like it.
Yeah, he sure did. Trying to pronounce Al-Zawahiri Al-zheimers. Yeah. It was a great Will Ferrell sketch regarding that on SNL. No,
yeah. Do you remember? Do you remember when you could make fun of speech impediments, presidential speech impediments?
Them were the days.
Oh man. I'm getting nostalgic.
The thing is that I'm pretty sure that Bush scored higher than Kerry did on the SAT, or Gore. He scored higher than Gore on the SAT. I don't know. Maybe there's a hanging chad's worth of difference. I want to mention hanging chad in every segment today, but I think he did. Yeah, Bush would look stiff very often in public. On the debate stage and all that. But I understand in person that he's really, really good. Of course, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And 9/11. I mean, when he took that megaphone and was standing.
Oh man,
there,
what a moment! What a moment.
Yeah. So, and now, of course, see the the Democrats. Oh no! Remember, he was Bush, Hitler. He was horrifying. And
my favorite was Chimpy McFlight suit.
Okay, so Dan Rather lost his career because he libeled him. So
Sure.
the Democrats were horrible, and so we decided, oh, we're gonna give you something, and we're gonna give it to you good. And his name was Donald Trump. I mean, it's our vengeance for what they did to Bush and to Romney and to McCain even. So you don't like this? Well, we'll give it to you. We'll give it to you hard. Yeah. So and we gave it to speaking of great transitions, to Al-Zawahiri. But here's the thing, and I want to give Biden credit. I mean, he didn't want to go. He didn't go. He was against going after the number 1 guy in Al Qaeda, but he did get the number 2 guy. Now the thing is, though, it wasn't like the guy was hiding. The guy was
on his balcony
in Kabul, I guess. It was like, come and get me, because I know you chicken Americans. I saw you fleeing here with Afghanis, however you pronounce that, on the wheels of your plane. So you're not going to go after. Well, guess what? We did.
Yeah, I don't know if it was. I didn't watch the video. I stepped away from the mic for a while. The weapon that they used to kill him. Oh my gosh, I didn't know he had anything like that.
I did not notice that.
It's a Hellfire missile, but it doesn't blow up. What it does when it gets close to the target, it has 4 swords that extend. So it just quarters them.
You're giving away Game of Thrones too, right now, aren't you? We don't have something like that. And I thought you were going to say
yeah, we
like
do. It's a special Hellfire. It's called the Bone Saw Hellfire.
I thought you were
made that
describe to me
point
like
up.
it was a neutron bomb. It didn't destroy the building, only destroys the people.
No, it just cuts up the victim. They actually call it the Ginsu Hellfire.
Really? You could? Oh yeah, I've seen it advertised in the middle of the night. Get your Hellfire missile right now. We can't use it now in any opponents.
Yeah. Sliced tomatoes from 3,000 miles away.
We're pacifists right now, but you can slice. It's better than a Vegemanic. You can slice and dice all your enemies.
But they believe it's more humane because all it does, it doesn't injure any bystanders. So if he was out there with it, on the balcony with his wives, they would have just, they just would have had to do laundry. They would have been.
I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, that's better than picking up the 7-10 split, as far as I'm concerned. You could just pick up. You could just nail a guy. I think Brian Williams once shot one of those in the war, if I'm not mistaken. I think he gave
Jane Fonda did, but it was for the wrong side.
Right. Well, can't blame. Hey, loved her in Barbarella.
Sure.
She made me stutter over it. So, meanwhile, speaking of good liberals, Jon Stewart. I mean, it was hard. He was even on Fox News last week with Bret Baier, and it seemed like he had the angels on his side because after all, he's Jon Stewart, Daily Show. He's saying, what's wrong with these Republicans? They won't fund money, which they had already voted for to help these veterans who had been victims of burn pits. But as we're showing on the screen right now, Noah Rothman in commentary really this is a Hellfire missile right to Jon Stewart.
That is an angry Jon Stewart.
Yeah. The thing is that there's almost always something more to the story. And for this, it was the old trick of having this appropriation in a big bill where you get to spend a lot of money and it turns out to be non-discretionary, and you can't get rid of it, and you're stuck with a big tab. Oh, sure, let's isolate that out. No, the Democrats didn't want that. No, they wanted it part of a big bill. So I always
refer to it as the Puppy Protection Act. It's
okay.
You vote against that, you hate puppies.
Right, totally. And so I mean, so what was he? Did anybody ever explain this to Jon Stewart so he could calm down?
No.
You know what? If I feel bad for him. If Rahm Emanuel weren't already the ambassador to Japan, I would send Jon Stewart there. But he's already got the.
Are they both fun sized? Is that what you're suggesting?
I think so. And then if Jon Stewart were sent to Japan, what would be the benefit for him, Tim?
He would be one of the tallest people in the country. Is that
There
where
you
we're
go.
going?
There we go. So maybe you
it's,
can help me workshop a little joke here. I was trying to work on. There's a candy shortage. Hershey's has decided that there's not decided. And I believe it's a supply chain issue that they're going to be short, especially in Halloween with Hershey's candies. And I was thinking, that must mean that. Now help me with this because I'm not very sensitive and I don't know how to make jokes. But that would mean that the trucks are not getting along the Hershey Highway right now. But then I thought that I would turn that into a monkeypox joke somehow accidentally, and I'd be politically incorrect. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Should we just edit that out right now?
Yeah. I think it's too late. I think we got.
Yeah.
But this is interesting. It's going to be miserable for the kids because all the good ones. Hershey makes all the good ones.
Really? Do they make Reese's Pieces?
Yes.
Oh my.
Yeah. I know. It's going to be popcorn balls in those icky things that were in the black and orange wrappers.
I liked popcorn balls, but I think they got rid of them like about 25 years ago because that's where the evil neighbor would slip the Wilkinson sword razor blade. And I
there's actually I saw a study that they believe that the only people who have ever put things like that into apples and popcorn balls and candy bars
were wicked witches. Yes.
No, we're parents looking for media attention. There's never been an incident of a kid eating a pin or slicing his lip.
Victimized by one of those?
No, from what I understand, there's no report.
There is not
ever.
one incident reported.
Not one.
It reminds me a little bit, if we could get back into the conspiracy theories and everything like that, and our guy Fincham, who it looks like he's going to be the nominee for Secretary of State in Arizona. There was a claim that 282 dead people had voted in the last election in Arizona. But the Attorney General found that there was only one, which still is a miracle, I guess. But National Review tried to get
one of them was Tony Dow, so there was a question.
Right. Well, who apparently is dead now. Am I right? I don't keep up with this.
Yeah,
he really is dead now.
Yeah. But who believes it? Who believes it?
Rumors of my demise were only slightly exaggerated to modify Mark Twain. So So they tried to get a quote from some of these people who were claiming that all these dead people voted, and Mr. Fincham did not answer phone calls apparently. So ducking it a little bit. We'll get him on, and I'm sure he'll have a reasonable explanation for it about the 282 people who allegedly voted. Now we do have a picture that we want to show right here, which I'll describe it for those of you who are podcast impaired, of Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson. And it's Trump in a MAGA hat, and he's standing I believe they're at the golf course, but they're standing in the reviewing stand or whatever. And Carlson is laughing hysterically, and he's got a double cup of something there. And so what is your caption for this, Tim? Do you have one?
You slipped me, my lord.
There you go. Mine was Trump saying, "My testicles are naturally tan." So I don't know.
Does it look like Tucker? You look like he's been drinking. It looks like it's not coffee, right?
No, and he's a double cupper. He's a double cupper as well.
Sure.
All right, we'll come back with more pictures that you can't see on the weekly wrap.
Tonight, a second case of monkeypox tied to the recent Pride celebration is being reported, and that's prompting a warning for anyone who attended those parties over Pride weekend. NBC Bay Area's Terry McSweeney reports from San Francisco.
Out for an evening stroll in the Castro district this evening, Josh, Nate, and their dog, Beverly. They tell us monkeypox is getting to be quite the buzz in this neighborhood, and some members of the gay community are a bit anxious.
This community knows STIs very well, and when a new one pops up, we take it seriously and immediately call to actions.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap. So Tim, I think I inadvertently covered this story in a prior segment in a in an embarrassing way. But
Oh, now you're embarrassed. Sure.
Yeah. You know me. In theory, I'm an old fuddy-duddy, but I always make exceptions for every individual I meet. You know, if you're divorced, I'm like got the Catholic position of 12:15 right after the Magna Carta on divorce. But if I know you, then it's okay. In theory, I'm against any marriage outside of two white people, a man and woman getting married. Screw loving versus Virginia. Anyway, no, but in practice, I always make exceptions. Just
here's what I don't get is that we had to cancel 2 years of 4th of July parades.
Blah, blah. Oh, and you didn't get to go to a funeral of a loved one. Blah, blah, blah. You didn't get to go to a religious service. And
just
now
talking about parades. Just talking about parades where it was likely to spread a disease. That's all.
This wasn't even a parade. These were parties. Here's the thing. You just don't go there, man. You don't go there. You don't even describe it.
That's like saying
sex. I've seen it described as it happens when people of the same sex have conjugal relations or something like that. They won't even say gay sex. And
cisgender non-birthing persons who have relations with other cisgender.
The White House apparently today declared this an emergency, but did anybody? I haven't seen the declaration, but did anybody say that anybody should engage in abstinence? I don't know that.
I'm wondering when we're going to start closing the non-essential businesses. Do we really need bathhouses open? Do we really?
Well, yeah, it's kind of an essential business. You want to talk about the crudest gay humor, anti-gay humor I ever heard, and cruelest. Do you remember all the stand-up comedians? Do you remember Fran Lebowitz? Do you remember her at all? Female comedian, Fran Lebowitz.
Barely.
And she was talking about how AIDS, and she's somehow trying to make it funny, whatever. But I think this was back in the 90s, or she said, the problem with, AIDS is that it killed the best gays. All my good friends died. It's like she didn't like that the second tier ones who couldn't get any action were, they're the ones now.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
She was pro, gay rights. So
the most promiscuous, the ones, the monogamous fuddy-duddy gays.
Well, the attractive ones, they were the most attractive, apparently.
I want to inject a note here, Chris. Sure. By the way, you might want to make sure that the tabs we're not using are closed because we can see your whole history. I didn't get a chance to see what they were, but when you put up that screen, we can see your whole history. So you're
what?
I don't know. I'm just making sure that.
Oh, you mean up top here on the second?
Yeah, well, yeah. When he does a little screen grab there, we can see his whole. Not you, Chris.
Chris.
Chris, I thought I said.
Well, I don't see Chris's. I don't even see Chris.
It's not there now.
Oh, okay.
No.
I sure don't want Chris to be caught like Britt Hume was.
Or
oiled
Jeffrey,
wrestlers, or something.
Jeffrey Toobin.
That's none of our business. And he was only looking for those San Francisco parties for the show, man. Not gee whiz.
The Monkeypox
you scared me. Anyway, just a brief thing. So we mentioned this earlier, made a reference to the Alzheimer's research, which apparently was bogus about Alzheimer's, and then we got the Wuhan virus, which people still want to believe that it was some bad at some market when right next door is where they're doing the gain of function research.
Sure.
I think there was some research about serotonin that didn't pan out. And the thing is
they found out that the people who are treated for depression, that there's no, that they did serotonin levels, because that's the common conventional wisdom.
Sure.
and they could not distinguish which ones would be depressed and which ones would not.
Right. So it's been
So
like a 50-year placebo.
It ain't a placebo. It makes people happy. There ain't no placebo there.
There you go. But
it's just not a medical condition.
As I heard somebody say, when you can't trust the science, that's what leads people to believe in conspiracy theories. So, and that's bad too. But so.
Well, science is never trusting the science. Good science never trusts the science. Good science is always questioning its conclusions.
Well, but at some point you do have to accept some things, because then you get to the situation where math is racist. Which no, we don't want to learn.
Just the division.
Well, you know what the thing is, I have always had it for the quadratic equation. There was something about that negative b plus or minus the square root of something that I just didn't like. But other areas of math, I could live with. I was egalitarian.
I was always suspicious of binomial functions. So
yeah, right. There you go. No. So there's a survey. Survey said that Chicago was in the top 10 cities of where people are leaving. And do we have that survey? Survey says, Richard Dawson, do we actually have that survey? Because I think San Francisco was at the top of that. And the sanguine thing for me about it was that we were only the 9th city. So I like to look at the glass, or the population is 10% full, not 90% empty. We're not the city that people are fleeing the most.
No. Well, the good thing about people,
even though we're in the top 10,
the good thing about people fleeing San Francisco is that there's a lot more available hearts for transplant.
Oh, really? There we go. I didn't.
Yeah, because you always leave.
You leave your heart. I got the Tony Bennett reference. Okay. It took me a couple of seconds to trigger that.
What do we got? What do we got here? We got people dancing with their wives. That's the time of their life. Come on, go get a beef sandwich.
There we go. So, sad news. 60 years ago today. You know what happened 60 years ago today?
60 years.
Seems like only 50 as far as.
I do. I'm aware. Do you want me to break it, or do you want to break it?
This just in. Tim, a reporter from Saul.
Jack and Bobby Kennedy were seen leaving Marilyn Monroe's apartment with a syringe.
Exactly right.
That's what happened.
Exactly right. They killed, as everybody knows, Marilyn Monroe 60 years ago today, or it may have been drugs. It's hard to believe it was. And I actually remember it happening because I was conscious back then. I am not now, but I was then. I was a little boy, and I remember it was a big deal.
How old were you? Were you old enough? Did you understood why people liked Marilyn Monroe?
I think I was about 8 years old, so I was about 3 or 4 years away from understanding why men liked Marilyn Monroe. Actually, my first love in the movies was Anita Ekberg and I'll Take Sweden. Bob Hope was chasing her around, and I really enjoyed that movie for a reason that I couldn't understand. Also, Bye Bye Birdie.
For me, it was for me. I'm sorry.
No, the other one was Anne Margaret and Bye Bye Birdie. I didn't want any of the scenes with Paul Lynde, and as much as I like the guy, or Ed Sullivan. But it was Anne Margaret, and I didn't quite understand what it was. But yeah, sure.
I can remember my moment was Julie Newmar as the cat girl tying Robin to a wooden bench. And same thing. I really enjoy this for some reason.
My question is, did you like Julie Newmar or Robin? That's my question. But as far as Marilyn Monroe goes, and speaking of Paul Lynde, I believe had she lived, she would have been a shoo-in for the center square in the Hollywood Squares. I don't care how much whining Paul Lynde would have done about her not having had a hit since Some Like It Hot. So, but sometimes it's better off for history or for the public, not for you personally. But if you go young, you would have been on the Hollywood Squares probably.
You're always there. Yeah, it's you don't you look at James Dean and Oh, why can't I remember his name? The Godfather.
Montgomery Clift.
No, I was gonna say Walter Matthau, but no, that's not
Sure.
right.
So
they were both Marlon Brando. They were both peers in their day, but yet it's James Dean is still recognized.
Well, like Brando,
as
but that's not because Brando's still loved.
Here's another example is Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell. Again, they were both peers in their day. Marilyn Monroe is
Jane Russell still around? Is she still swimming laps?
When she was the full figure gal for Playtex.
So now we're moving on to people who should have died young, which is really macabre.
Amy Schumer.
I don't think she ever really had it. So yeah, that's a problem. But send in your suggestions on that one.
Who should have died young?
Who lasted way too long. Maybe this podcast has, but
certainly this episode.
Yeah, right. Well, you can't hit them all. In any event, we do have one more segment coming up, and it's Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on it from the Center Square on the weekly wrap.
Socialism failing to work as it always does, this time in Venezuela. You talk about giving everybody something free, and all of a sudden there's no food to eat. And who do you think is the richest person in Venezuela? The daughter of Hugo Chavez. Hello. Anyway, 0-2.
Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap. And I guess if you've announced baseball for 6 decades, you're grandfathered in, or you get some kind of immunity, and you get to go on a rant that no other person. I mean, if it had been a liberal rant, it's fine. Then you'd be endorsed by the Chicago Teachers Union if you said Hugo Chavez was a great man. What I do like, of course, is that even when he goes on a rant, there's a much bigger clip on this whole thing. It's just the rant is a parenthetical expression. He sticks to the ball game, and so he gets away with it. Hugo Chavez is a commie bastard. Ball low and outside.
It reminded me a lot of it, like he was channeling Harry Carey. That's the kind of thing Harry would do. Is oh, am I loaded?
No, what here?
Here's the pitch.
If Harry would have said Hugo Chavez backwards. I saw Harry once, and I knew that he was starting to lose it. The bases it was one thing when Harry would go into talking about ball players' names backwards when there was a big, lull in the game, and baseball games do have a number of those. But this was the 9th inning, and the bases were loaded for the Cubs. And it was like a 3-2 count, and Ron Darling was on the mound for the Mets. And all of a sudden, Harry goes, Darling backwards. Wait a minute, Harry. Don't go into that right now. You got a ball game to announce. But Harry, I guess, he had immunity, too, because he was around for 6 or 7 decades. But anyway, it was kind of fun to see. Vin Scully died at the age of 94. There were a lot of tributes to him. One came from Michael Brendan Doherty at National Review. Even these political guys are saying the problem is he referred to Kirk Gibson as Kurt Gibson, and I know you, as a Tiger fan, would not want to be have Kirk Gibson's name
I don't want Rusty's last name mispronounced either.
You mean Rusty Staub or Rusty Kuntz?
Either one.
Le Grand Orange or anyway. Yeah, I think it was Dan Bernstein of The Score when we were talking years ago. He once told me that the trick to doing a good Vin Scully impersonation was to have him say the most outrageous, preferably sexually charged and scatological things in that lilting cadence where you could get away with it. Of course, in the current environment at The Score, you do know that they actually have 1/5 of a woman in their weekly lineup. That might be impossible. And actually, the analysis of how to do a Scully impersonation was redolent to me of George Carlin's advice on how to do an Ed Sullivan imitation. It was all in the acts that you came up with, the more outrageous, the better, right here on our stage. Before we bring out Peggy Cass and the Marquis Chimps, the entire Arab-Israeli conflict. Anyway, that's the way you do an impersonation.
There's certain words I always like to do when I'm doing Tom Brokaw.
Oh yes, all with beginning with an L. Yes.
Well, like the hot sauce Cholula.
Well, remember, of course, I think that Tom Brokaw met his Waterloo when during the Nancy Kerrigan Tanya Harding thing, because the husband's name was Jeff Galooly, and
there's another one.
There you go.
Boy, Nancy and Tanya, boy, that was back when athletes knew how to take a knee, huh?
So I always thought that Al Michaels was Vin Scully's son, but apparently they sounded very similar to me. Meanwhile, in other sports, and you can tell that Chris does the rundown to this because he's the zealous White Sox fan. I didn't even know that the White Sox merely added a reliever with a 4.38 ERA. I've really got to study up on the Sox because I'm going to take my grandsons who live in New York to a Sox game in a couple of weeks. And they know everything, and they're like 10 and 8 years old. And I supposedly know things because I used to be a sportscaster, but I know nothing about what's going on with these teams right now. Can you help me a little bit, Tim? I didn't think so.
Well, yeah, it might have a 4.38, but it was such a bargain.
Right. Well, that's the problem. I mean, Rick Hahn, the general manager of the White Sox, has been criticized because he didn't pull off a big deal. There's this guy Lawrence Holmes at the Score. I read a tweet of his where he was saying the guy isn't even doing his job, and he was screaming about this. And I can't exercise over that. What I can get exercised over, however, and I'd love to hear the Score talk about this, is the proposed Brittany Griner Victor Bout trade. Are you familiar with this run? Now, Brittany Griner is the WNBA player who just got sentenced today to 9 years in prison for having hashish in
my favorite.
In
I have to throw this in here. It's my favorite Brittany Griner quote. She said at her trial, she said, "They didn't even read me my rights."
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, they did. They gave you a list of all the rights that Russian citizens have.
See, this is the problem when you are in a league that is subsidized by the men of the NBA. I mean, that the WNBA could not exist, could it? But for the largesse of the NBA,
It's sort of like a Title IX sort of thing, even though it's exempt.
You know, here's the thing. I mean, she shouldn't have to spend any time. She's all time served, as far as I'm concerned. But the trade, I mean, this guy is an arms dealer, and he's got the Dr. No kind of name, Victor Bout. Victor with a K, and I've actually heard somebody say, "Oh no, there's no problem in making the trade, because if you do that, first of all, they're throwing in a player to be named later. No, first of all, because Victor Bout it's not like he's going to go back to Russia and be allowed to go into arms sales, because we're going to, I don't know, have an ankle monitor on him or something, or we'll be tracking him." I mean, this guy was making it sound like it's not that big a deal to give him.
Yeah, he's reformed. He's reformed. He's paid his debt to society, and he's gonna go into something legitimate like selling used cars.
And this guy was saying there is absolutely no evidence that when we make trades like this, that causes the other side to start kidnapping more people and not reading them their Miranda rights, which I believe was the case before the U.S. Supreme Court, not the Supreme Soviet. That's Brittany Griner.
Yeah, but I think that arms dealer had an ERA of 4.3.
Yeah, there you go, and he's worth it. So what you're saying, I think, is, Tim, if Brittany Griner is allowed to come back to the United States, that she is forced to take a civics exam and pass a Constitution test like any immigrant. So meanwhile, Wilson Contreras of the Cubs, everybody they had a farewell tour for the guy, and then he doesn't get traded. Okay, so it's like, and Ian Happ as well. But Contreras' situation to me was reminiscent of the Rolling Stones' farewell performance at Soldier Field in 1978. So I would be embarrassed. I'd wear a mask, and I think he will behind home plate permanently, because he was supposed to leave. Goodbye now. Then this happened.
Well, kind of like Eagles and Cher. It's how many farewell tours between the two of them?
Yeah, no, right. The Stones, I think, have the record for farewell performances. So Kyler Murray is this quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals, and his contract became a cause célèbre last week or so, because I think they gave him like a $400 million extension, something like that, some ungodly number. But they included in the contract that he had to do 4 hours a week of independent study because it was a homework clause, because he's notorious for not studying up. He's able to read the defenses on his own. He doesn't have to study. It reminded me so much of, you remember Allen Iverson when he was with the 76ers, and somebody said that he missed practice, and he did this disquisition on practice, and he said, practice? We're talking about practice here. You're making such a big deal out of practice. It was that was reminiscent of Jim Mora's playoffs. So it's but now I see that,
or Maynard G. Krebs work.
Yeah. So now that I see Kyler Murray, they took out that clause. Apparently, he won. So they don't even get that. They don't even for their several $100 million. They don't.
Well,
even
by the time you get to the NFL, you've spent how many years copying off the smart kids paper next to you? I mean, come on.
Right. They should just have some geek study the game film, an Adam Schefter, somebody like that, and then test him on it, but not the actual quarterback in the game. So then this just happened last week as well. So Minnie Minoso finally makes the Hall of Fame. And I grew up idolizing Minnie Minoso, and I actually got to meet him several times as well. But his Hall of Fame plaque is rife with politically correct mentions. Like, he's the first Latin ball player. It's all about that. They even have his name with, and correct me if I'm wrong with on this, over the N, the Enya, which they didn't have that when he was playing for the White Sox back in the day. And, when I was a kid, I didn't care about his color. But now 60 years later, it seems like it's all about that.
Yeah, but they didn't have 64-byte fonts back then either. I mean, they only had the people who put up the names on the screen just had 26 letters.
I guess so. We would have had that. They should have an accent aigu over the E on my name as well.
So you're saying
the French version.
You're saying that Minnie is woke?
Woke, I believe right now.
Which is kind of ironic, because Tony La Russa did not wake.
Yes. And on that note, Tim, what a wonderful week it's been on the Weekly Wrap. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap, and this is our bonus segment in which we do Wolf's World and Tim's Town, which I forget every time we do it what it's all about. Boy, well, they'd never asked me to host Jeopardy, would they?
Wolf's World, Tim's Town, and Chris's comments.
Oh, okay, sure. It's all we have to. All our answers have to be in alliterations. Okay, I got that. All right, Chris, go ahead.
So I delve
or
deep
get going, I should say. That's the alliteration. What?
Or get this over with is what you probably really mean.
It's not an alliteration, so no. Go ad nauseum.
So I rifle through Bruce's Twitter feed, Tim's Facebook usually, or is more active. Find what I think are sometimes funny, sometimes just I might have a question about them. So we show the tweet, we read the tweets for the people listening, and then I usually ask you a question of what was this about, what were you thinking, or we just get the cheap laugh off it and move on.
No, and I love the fact that the clarity is not my one main virtue, I guess. So you need me to explain. Yeah, I just
clarity challenged to keep the alliteration going.
Sometimes 140 characters, it's tough to squeeze that in, right?
I just like to say res ipsa loquitur to everything, which means the thing speaks for itself. But go ahead, you just challenge me right now.
And you like to show off your Latin.
Yeah, there you go. Legal Latin. Yeah.
So the first one, we enter Wolf's World. And by the way, all these are from like June because they were left over from another segment. So they might not be super topical. But we look at a picture of former Illinois Governor Jim Thompson. Items collected by former Illinois Governor Jim Thompson to be sold this weekend. And then your tweet was knee pads for begging for state legislators to give the White Sox a new ball.
Yeah. So Jim Thompson, our late governor, was lobbying with the state legislature to get funds for the new Comiskey Park. The White Sox were threatening to move to St. Petersburg. They had even their stadium was under construction there. I actually did a piece for Channel 32 where I went down there and threw rocks at the stadium. And
it is weird because no one wears white socks in St. Petersburg. It should have been the St. Petersburg flip flops.
There were, yeah, right. They would have changed the name of the team, and you know what? They should have changed the name of the team because my beloved White Sox are always going to be a Chicago thing, and not anywhere else. Yeah, what team?
Were the Expos still around back then? They were, right? Chicago kept the name and bought the Expos.
The Expos. Boy, that's 1988. I don't know when I think the Expos went into the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. I could never recognize the Expos because I couldn't read their baseball caps. I always thought it said E. Well, it did say EB, Expos Baseball, but it also looked like an M for Montreal.
Those final years playing in Puerto Rico, remember? And no fans in Montreal, so they would just go down and play like 20 games in Puerto Rico.
Oh, exactly.
That was the 90s, though. Yes, the Expos were still around.
So anyway, Thompson he literally got on his knees. They were covering it live, getting on his knees, lobbying with legislators.
Literally?
Not figuratively.
Wow.
But literally got on his knees. Well, Thompson was a tall guy even on his knees.
He could have been a California state district attorney.
Okay, hi-yo. See, I wasn't going to go there. And,
That's why you got me, Bruce, so you don't have to.
I wanted an innocent construction of the term knee pads, that he just needed it because he was going to be on the floor there, literally, trying to lobbying the state legislators, and it passed, and the rest is history. The White Sox won a World Series.
The glorious grand old dome of Comiskey was torn down.
I'm so old school that I still was suspicious about them tearing it down, even when chunks of the upper deck were falling into the lower deck. I think you could patch that up. Come on. Well, I mean, that was the ballpark that I grew up in, and
sure, absolutely.
I grew up in there because I was homeless, and we used to just sneak in. I lived either there
back
or,
when you
or
could get a game and a couple bags of peanuts for a nickel.
Pretty much. We're talking about Luke Appling era, of course, and when he would foul off strike three by bunting for 3.5 hours, and they finally had to change the rules that you couldn't bunt with 2 strikes and foul it off, because he literally, and I kid you not, he could foul off 1,000 pitches.
Huh.
Okay, so anyway, I'm just trying to stretch this segment a little bit, and so there you have an explanation of my tweet, which really needed no explanation.
So we move on to Tim's Town.
Sure.
Oh boy.
Tim, post from you on Facebook. For those who doubted the close relationship between socialism and fascism, just look at how quickly Russia made the transition. This is from February. I had to go back for that. But I just wanted to say, just wanted to show off your intellectual prowess here.
Yeah, that had nothing to do with the news. It just occurred to me that Russia is no longer socialist. They're pretty much a fascist.
That's such a deep thought. I looked at transition and I immediately thought of that swimmer from Penn who won all the NCAA accolades. So that's where my mind.
Or Brittany Griner, who gets accused of it. And
does she?
Apparently not. Apparently, have you heard her talk? I didn't think anything until I actually heard her in the courtroom, and I went, "When does Brittany talk?" It's like,
I'm wondering
is that her attorney?
Yeah, I'm wondering if Brittany at this stage can distinguish, like the old time liberals used to do, between the communism of the Soviet Union and the fascism of Nazi Germany. I dare say, Tim, that she would blur that distinction, considering she never did have her rights read to her.
Well, I believe it was Friedrich Hayek that said that eventually the Soviet Union would be indistinguishable from Nazi Germany, and he was pretty much on.
Yeah.
Tim, I had one more question for you on this. Oops.
Yeah.
Let me bring it up really quick because I think it. When you were putting this together, why does it keep showing Bruce? When you're putting this together, did you put a lot of thought into this background?
Yeah, I thought of that too. The red background. Yes.
You had there's Christmas trees and snowmen with their play on the.
No, he just had some leftover wrapping paper from Christmas.
I don't know if it was because of Valentine's Day or I just wanted red and I was doing it on my phone, which is a smaller screen, and I didn't see the snowmen and Christmas trees.
I couldn't find the swastika emoji.
Hammer and sickle. Okay, on to Bruce. Bruce, this was you retweeted Dan Rather, who tweeted, "My suspicion is that Matthew McConaughey is actually speaking for a lot more gun owners, certainly responsible gun owners, than the NRA." And then you tweeted at Marge Halpern. I don't know.
Right. I used to work with her at WXRT because she's the one who had quoted Dan Rather.
Dan, whom I've interviewed twice, he was fun. Also had a suspicion about President Bush, which got Dan fired. Who are the irresponsible gun owners? The millions who shoot up schools? Oh, right, they don't. Okay, Marge, raise the age to 21, state by state happy. Now, this is before you keep shifting on this.
How do I shift on this?
Well, you were for a assault weapon ban last week, remember?
I didn't say it was for a ban.
Do you listen to your own show?
If you would like to impeach me, I mean, this
was a month before the Highland Park shooting, though. In his defense, Chris, it's
so yeah, it didn't hit home, if you will, for Bruce's month.
Oh boy, skewer me right now. There should be. You're assaulting me, sir, with your rhetoric. There should be an assault ban. I'm having a difficult time with the issue. I mean, seriously, I just don't.
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, my prediction, and I don't think this is necessarily something that I want to see happen, but if there are more shootings like that, like Uvalde and Highland Park, you're going to get a ban. And but people just aren't going to put up with it. And in the long run, I don't know if we're better off actually repealing the Second Amendment, because I think that will encourage a docility in the populace that I don't really want to see. And of course, you talk about slippery slopes. Second Amendment goes, the first one could follow. So,
but the Second Amendment is the one that keeps the first one in check.
It might very well. And the problem is, on the other hand, we're getting these shootings, and look, there's all kinds of solutions. Mental health should be improved. We should be throwing more people into the cuckoo's nest. There's all kinds of problems.
I think we need good common sense media control. I think
reasonable. Reasonable media.
I think the founding fathers they could have never envisioned the 24-hour news cycle.
Absolutely not.
Freedom of the press the press was a wooden Gutenberg press.
You are so right, sir. Amen to that. And Abraham Lincoln threw newspaper editors in jail. Now, granted, he had a civil war going on, so it was more than a Pritzker emergency dictated by the Chicago Teachers Union. I'll grant you that.
But we're going on 3 months of Uvalde now. I mean, and Chicago has an Uvalde every single weekend, and it doesn't make national news. I mean,
but
we obsess on these shootings.
Because it's kids in schools, and I'm telling you, that's forget about, or at parades, and
I
know it shouldn't be any different.
Lonely, isolated kids, and we reward them with infamy.
And on that kissy face note, we end the bonus segment on the weekly wrap.
And that's the weekly wrap on radio and television. Follow Bruce at Bruce Wolf Shy on Twitter and Tim at timslagle.com. The weekly wrap with Bruce Wolf, a CP Pods production. Copyright 2022.